My diabetic son called me crying. My wife said, I took away his insulin pump because he didn't do his chores. He can have it back after dinner. I replied, stay right there. Then I called 911 for child endangerment and rushed home with police. When she tried to tell the officers it was just parenting, I'm 34, and I've been through things most people can't even imagine. My son, he's only 10, depends on me for more than just love. He depends on me to keep him alive. And the woman I trusted with him, well, that's where this nightmare starts. It was just after 4 p.m., a late Thursday, when my phone rang. I glanced down at the screen, expecting it to be a routine text from my son's school. Instead, I saw his name flash in bright green letters. Eli. My stomach dropped. He never called me without a reason. Dad, I I don't know what to do, he sobbed, voice trembling, barely audible through the phone. My heart slammed. I gripped the counter as I listened. What's wrong, Eli? Calm down, breathe. Tell me what happened. Mom, she took my pump, he stammered, panic breaking through every syllable. She said I didn't do my chores. She said I can have it back after dinner. A wave of disbelief and fury hit me simultaneously. I've always tried to teach Eli responsibility, household chores, homework, self-discipline. But punishing a child with type 1 diabetes by taking away his insulin pump? That was beyond anything I could tolerate. My mind raced as I tried to steady myself, to even process the words. I could hear the hum of traffic outside, the faint murmur of neighbors through the walls, and the distant cry of a siren far away. But inside, all I could hear was my son's terrified breathing. Stay right there, I said, my voice cold, controlled but laced with steel. I'm coming. Don't move. Don't do anything. Just stay right there. She answered the phone. The line clicked, and suddenly her voice was there, smooth, almost rehearsed. He's fine, he's fine. I'm just teaching him a lesson. Don't make this into a big deal. Teaching him a lesson. My blood boiled. Teaching a 10-year-old child a life-threatening lesson? The world tilted beneath me. My mind snapped into overdrive. I didn't hesitate. I dialed 911. Yes, hello, my child is being put in danger. He has type 1 diabetes and his insulin pump has been taken away. I explained, each word measured, controlled, urgent. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I had to remain steady because someone had to save my son. Please send officers immediately to 214 Maple Street. This is a child endangerment situation. After hanging up, I grabbed my keys and threw on a jacket. My chest was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I thought about my son, his small frame, his trembling hands, the sound of his sobs, and I promised myself I wouldn't let this pass. Not this time, not her, not anyone. The drive home was a blur. Every red light felt like an eternity, every turn a potential disaster. My thoughts spun. How did it come to this? We've been married for 8 years. She's never crossed this line before. Or has she? I remembered small incidents, moments I had brushed off. His blood sugar kits left in strange places, her arguing over medication schedules, the subtle ways she controlled, always justifying it as discipline. Maybe I hadn't wanted to see the pattern. Maybe I had been too trusting, but today she had gone too far. I arrived at the house, and the sight of the flashing police lights outside my home made my stomach lurch. 2 officers stood near the front door, talking quietly. I took a deep breath, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, then stepped out. As soon as I approached, my wife appeared in the doorway. She was calm, too calm, perfectly composed, but I could see it in her eyes, the momentary flicker of fear. She knew she'd gone too far. It's just parenting, she said, trying to laugh it off. He wasn't in any real danger. He just needed a lesson. I thought, lesson? I interrupted, my voice icy, sharp. You took his insulin pump. You took away his life-saving medication, and you call that a lesson? The officers exchanged glances. One stepped forward. Ma'am, we're going to need you to step aside and answer some questions. This is a serious matter. Her face tightened. This is ridiculous. He's exaggerating. I heard him crying, I said firmly, my eyes locked on hers. I heard the fear in his voice, and I won't let anyone, even you, put my son in danger like that. There was a long pause, heavy with tension. The neighborhood seemed to fall silent. Even the wind outside had stopped. I could feel my heartbeat hammering in my ears. Then quietly, I saw Eli appear at the top of the stairs. He held his pump in his hands now, but he wasn't using it, just gripping it as if it were a lifeline. His small face was pale, his eyes wide. My heart twisted. "Dad," he whispered. I knelt down on the porch steps. "I'm here, Eli. You're safe now. You're safe." The officers stepped closer, taking in the scene, jotting notes. I could see the tension rising in my wife's shoulders. Her composure cracked for a moment, and I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. How did it come to this? The woman I thought I knew. She had become someone I didn't recognize. I glanced at my son. "Tell me exactly what happened." Eli's voice shook, but he told the story. Every detail. The punishment, the fear, the moments he thought he might be in real danger. And as he spoke, my resolve hardened. This wasn't about anger. This wasn't about revenge. This was about protecting my son and making sure no child would ever have to feel this terror at home. I turned back to my wife. "The police will decide what comes next, but know this, I will never ever let this happen again." Her lips pressed together. She tried to speak, but the words faltered. And in that moment, I knew. The mask was gone. The lessons she thought she was teaching had turned against her. The air felt heavier once the police officers stepped inside. I followed them quietly, keeping my son close. Every creak of the hardwood floor, every muffled sound from the neighbors outside, it all felt amplified. The house I once considered a safe haven now felt like a stage for judgment. The officers approached my wife first, their expressions stern but professional. "Ma'am, we need a full account of what happened," one of them said. "This isn't a casual parenting issue. This is a potential criminal matter. We're here to determine if your actions endangered your child." Her face paled. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then tried again. I was just trying to teach him responsibility. He wasn't in danger, I swear. It's parenting. Every parent does it sometimes." One officer shook his head. "We're not here to debate parenting philosophy. Your child has type 1 diabetes. You removed his life-saving insulin pump. That constitutes endangerment until proven otherwise." I stood silently watching her reactions, feeling the control I had long lost return in waves. Every word she fumbled, every defensive glance, every hesitation, it confirmed my decision to call 911. Eli clung to my leg, looking up at me with those wide, trusting eyes. I brushed his hair back, whispering, "You're safe now, buddy. You did nothing wrong." She tried again, voice trembling. "He just didn't do his chores." I thought, "You thought what?" I interrupted, my voice low, dangerous. "That it was okay to gamble with his life? That punishing him medically was a lesson?" Her shoulders slumped. There was nothing left to say, no excuse that could withstand the weight of what she had done. The officers began taking statements, typing notes, asking me detailed questions. They asked for timelines, the number of times she had restricted his insulin, her reasoning, and her past behavior regarding Eli's health. I recounted everything, every small incident, every argument I had brushed aside as minor, every subtle manipulation I had ignored in hopes it would just pass. Meanwhile, my wife retreated into herself, answering only in fragments, trying desperately to salvage her story. But the cracks were too deep, and every attempt sounded hollow, weak, and implausible. Then came the social aftermath, the calls, the texts, the messages from friends and family. Some were supportive, almost immediately offering comfort and validation. "You did the right thing," one friend wrote. "No parent should put a child at risk like that." Another, more cautious, asked if I had considered counseling or family mediation. I read them all, but none mattered as much as seeing my son safe and alive. But there were voices that questioned me too. Judgmental murmurs and skeptical friends who whispered about whether I overreacted. I let those words roll off me, knowing that anyone who had actually listened to Eli's cries would understand. My priority wasn't reputation, it was life. Through it all, The plot twist revealed itself quietly, almost insidiously. I discovered through one of the officers that this wasn't her first warning. There had been prior reports of neglect, subtle incidents that had been overlooked. The realization hit me like ice water. The danger was ongoing, cumulative, and the moment she took Eli's pump had been a tipping point. By the time the officers were ready to leave, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. My wife was pale, subdued. Her confident posture vanished. I felt a strange mixture of triumph and sorrow. I hadn't wanted to humiliate her. I had wanted to protect my son, but the consequences had been inevitable. Eli hugged me tightly as we walked out of the house together. "Dad, thank you," he whispered, burying his face into my chest. His words were simple, but the weight behind them was immeasurable. I held him for a long moment, letting him know that no one would ever harm him like that again. Later, messages poured in from extended family and close friends. Some offered advice about therapy, others shared stories of similar experiences, and a few even confirmed suspicions about her manipulative tendencies. It became clear that while the house seemed quiet now, the reverberations of this night would be felt for a long time. I deleted the phone notifications, silencing the outside chatter. What mattered was Eli, and what mattered was ensuring his life and safety going forward. Conversations with the police confirmed that she could face serious charges if evidence corroborated my statements. They assured me that everything would be handled according to the law, and they urged me to keep detailed records of any further incidents. I spent the night sitting by Eli's bedside, monitoring his glucose levels, making sure he had the proper doses. Each beep of his monitor felt like a tiny victory, a reassurance that he was safe, alive, and in control. My mind replayed the events over and over. The phone call, the panic, the drive home, the officers, her face, and I realized something crucial. The mask she wore, the facade of normalcy, had crumbled entirely. The carefully constructed veneer of control and lesson teaching was gone, and with it, the illusion that she could ever endanger my son without consequences. By morning, the neighborhood was buzzing quietly, whispers of the incident floating through the air. Some sympathized, others speculated, but none of that mattered. The truth had been set in motion. My son was safe, the authorities were aware, and justice was no longer just a word, it was inevitable. I remember sending out a text to my closest friends, simply saying, "Eli's safe. We're okay. That's all that matters." And for the first time in hours, I felt a flicker of relief. Weeks later, as the legal process unfolded, I stayed vigilant, documenting every small action, every potential risk. The officers checked in periodically, ensuring Eli's safety and offering guidance. It was exhausting, terrifying, and emotionally draining, but it was also empowering. I had reclaimed control of my son's world. The final confrontation came quietly. She tried to manipulate, tried to charm, tried to gaslight, but the officers and I were prepared. Nothing she could say would reverse what had happened. The truth was on my side. The recordings, the statements, the phone logs, all undeniable evidence. And in that moment, watching her realize that her attempts to justify herself had failed, I felt something unexpected. Closure. Not vengeance, not malice, but the satisfaction that my son was safe and that I had acted decisively when it mattered most. Eli hugged me again, this time more firmly, as if he could sense the full weight of what had just passed. "Dad, you saved me," he whispered, and I knew in my heart that was all the reward I needed. The days that followed were quieter, calmer. The house began to feel like home again, not a battleground. I made plans for counseling for Eli and for myself, to process the trauma, to ensure that our lives could move forward without fear. And slowly but surely we began to heal. Looking back, I realized that sometimes being a parent isn't about patience or compromise or trying to preserve appearances. Sometimes being a parent is about action. Fast, decisive, unflinching action when your child's life is at stake. And in that moment, I acted. I didn't wait. I didn't hesitate. I protected what mattered most. And Eli, he's here, alive, healthy, smiling again. And that, in the end, is the only victory that truly matters.